Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Ashmita. I will be your moderator for today's session. Um, Before we start off, I would like to give you all a brief idea about how the platform will work and what are some of the troubleshooting ideas that I would like to share with you so that you may be able to uh, listen to the expert as smoothly as possible. So, those of you who have join the platform over on the web browser, make sure that you are using Google Chrome. Try and avoid using Internet Explorer because this platform is not it does not support Internet Explorer as much. Also, if at any point of time you feel that you're not being able to hear clearly, or there is the audio is giving some problem, or the video is not so clear, just log out and log back in. You should be able to hear clearly again. Also, do check the internet connectivity at your end as well. We are trying to also maintain a steady connectivity from our end. If you're using a Wi-Fi, try sitting closer to the modem so that it helps you get a better transmission. Um, I would like to also mention that today all of us would remain muted. This is for the benefit of all us listeners, so that we can hear the expert clearly without any disruption. So all of us are going to be on mute. You will be able to communicate with us over the chat box. So we will try and continuously follow what is being shared on the chat. Um, Also, I would like to inform all of you beforehand that this session is being recorded. Um, at any point of time, if you see that none of the options which I suggested is working, you can still catch another repeat of this same session on Facebook Premiere on June 4th. Just follow the Oxford University Press Facebook page, and you will get a notification the moment we start off airing the premiere. It will be from 4 to 5 again on June 4th. So we'll start today's webinar on science EVS skill building at home, and for that we have Vaishali Gupta with us. I would like to begin with a brief introduction of Vaishali. She has been writing in education for almost 20 years now, and also has a deep involvement with development quality education material in India. Her understanding of the practical, application based, child friendly, and interactive learning process required in today's education system is transacted in her various school textbooks and learning materials. She has authored several school textbooks, activity books, and quiz books as well. For Oxford University Press, she has authored science and EVS textbooks for primary and middle schools like Treehouse, Trek, Springboard, New Science in Everyday Life, Science Horizons, and Hello Earth. Drawing on her understanding of pedagogy and to test run the finest principles of child centric learning and building 21st century skills among children, Vaishali holds workshops for teachers of science across the country to promote experiential learning and skill building in schools. She's trained in various programs like STEM instruction that work, deep learning in classrooms and beyond, as well as educating global citizens from the prestigious Harvard Graduate School of Education in USA. She is the founder of One Teacher, One Scientist, where she imparts a constructivist learning approach and guides teachers how they can achieve the same in their classrooms through her workshops. Many teachers have benefited with this approach, and wherever applied, their students have found active engagement and well integrated and meaningful learning of science concepts in an interdisciplinary manner. Vaishali's various other achievements include awards, recognition, distinctions, and even a special gold medal in biology. She has also studied child development and psychology, which helps her to design and develop appropriate learning material and learning experiences for children. Um, Before I hand over the floor to Vaishali, I would just like to give a brief outlook of how the session is going to proceed. So, we will have the first session taken up by the expert, and towards the end, we'll assign some 10 to 15 minutes for a quick round of question answer session. So, teachers, park your question, and for those for the Q and A session, when I will announce again that you can start sharing your questions, put it on the chat box, and we'll take it up from there. So, Vaishali, over to you.
Thank you, Ashmita. I welcome all of you here on this webinar on science and EVS skill building at home. These are rather very unprecedented times where all of us have been in a very uncertain sort of a situation. And sometimes in such situations, when we are thrown off gear, we we respond in different ways. And the thing is that we need to be very mindful of how we are responding, because our responses are what become templates for children. Children are like sponges, they absorb everything from their environment. So, how we respond to these present situations will give children a template as to how they will respond in uncertain times. These are very uncertain times for sure. I don't think any of us envisage this. So, like in the beginning, when this whole corona thing came up, we were all thrown off gear. It was like a fight and flight mechanism that we were all in. And I saw that we were all just trying to, kind of troubleshoot using online classes, using Zoom. Children were being put in front of the screen, and we were all trying to complete our curriculum. It was like a major scare that we all got into. So that was an uncertain time. But I think somewhere we need to pause and reinvent the wheel. Together, we need to make learning more effective and engaging for children. Homes are perfect places for learning. Like we have in school, we still have restriction of time, restriction of resources, restrictions of the number of children that can be put together, how children are going to learn, how we transact different methodologies. But homes are storehouses of learning. We can make learning fun, long lasting, contextual, where children are making real world context every day. The only thing is that we need to just reinvent the way we are approaching learning at the present moment. Before we go on to understand how homes can be used as perfect learning centers, let's try and look what is it that is expected out of our pedagogies, our methodologies. So, what is it that the learning environment needs to be? We need to provide a learning environment that is more engaging, it is more relevant. Many times children start thinking, why do I have to study this? When we are teaching them in school, when we are teaching them using a whiteboard or even an animation, the child does not form a contextual real world connect. So therefore he doesn't find his learning very authentic and real. And when they don't find a real connect with what they are learning and what is happening around them, then learning is perceived as a burden. So we need to change that. And these times are actually a blessing in disguise, because we are getting a home environment where children can connect their learning, connect their curriculum with their everyday life. The only thing is that we need to change the way we are perceiving it. We need to change the way we are looking at the curriculum, looking at how we are transacting that curriculum. The methodology just needs to shift a little. Let's see what are the curricular expectations. So, policymakers advocate that learning should be experiential. The child should experience what he is learning. And what can be a better place than a home? Kitchens can be perfect labs to learn science and EVS concepts. The home environment can be a perfect place to learn about family bonds, about indoor games, about outdoor games. These are the first few units that we do in EVS. Kitchens can be perfect science labs, bathrooms can be perfect science labs, gardens or balconies can be perfect labs. The only thing is that we need to switch our transactional methodology. The way we were doing it in school was more structured, confined within our classrooms. Today, we are getting labs at home. Today, we are getting areas and corners of learning at home. And what we need to do is we just need to tweak. We just need to adapt our textbooks. They are all there. All the experiments, all the activities that are there in the textbooks can actually be transacted at home. We don't need to make them sit in front of Zoom or any other online platform to make that happen. All we need is a little bit of collaboration with the parents. So, learning outcomes mandate can actually be easily achieved when we are doing this at home. If you look at the learning outcomes for EVS, the outcomes are all engaging. They are all basically based on the child's immediate environment. If we look at the science learning outcomes of middle school, they also promote the idea of a child applying concepts, analyzing, evaluating, and creating solutions to problems related to the real world, related to his real life. Skill building is something that we will see how we can achieve it in our homes. So when the child is being made to do activities at home, he's experiencing learning. Instead of, this is a very good time that we've got. The children are sitting at home and they are able to actually transact those methodologies which are needed to achieve those learning outcomes. You know, Teaching should be bilingual. That is another thing that policymakers are advocating. And if you look at it, when the child is at home, the parent would probably be talking in his mother tongue. So the child is automatically transacting or learning in English as well as his own mother tongue. So automatically bilingual teaching will happen without any effort. It will automatically happen. Language development can take place majorly when the child is learning at home. When the child is at home, the child will constantly be talking. And these are times when we can create family bonds. When the child is talking to the parent, when the child is interacting with the grandparents, with the siblings, they are learning so many values and life skills too. And the language development automatically happens. Because in a classroom, what happens? The teacher has to ensure that the child is speaking or ensure that the child is motivated enough to do it. At home, all you need is give them tasks and give them experiential learning tasks. The moment the child finds it relevant, suppose it is in the kitchen. Suppose if you tell a small child, say a grade 1, 2, or 3 child to make a lemonade at home, there would be so many concepts that the child can learn over there. He's experiencing. He's experiencing solubility. He'll experience what is solid, liquid, gas. He will experience how what are the factors that solubility is dependent on. When the child is using, say, a lemon, when he's making a lemonade, he will experience what is a lemon, right? What is a three-dimensional figure? There are so many concepts that get interrelated. When the child makes the lemonade, you can tell the child, okay, now share it with your parents at home, share it with all your family members, collect feedback. So see how language will start getting integrated. And when the child collects feedback, ask him to innovate. Tell him, okay, now make changes so that it becomes better. So when the child is doing that, he's incorporating feedback, and that is innovation. Children are very scared of failure. This is a very good way of helping children learn failure and take it in their stride in a fun manner. This is a very important life skill. And in school, it becomes very difficult to transact this or make your child understand, because over there we are in a very structured construct. Here, it is through unstructured learning. When children are playing games, they can learn at home. They can learn so many concepts when they are talking to their parents, when they're interacting with their siblings. Not only are they learning decision making, conflict resolution, a lot of rich talk is happening. Parents can be guided how to use that rich talk to clear concepts. It's basically now that the teacher's role has to become a facilitator, where the interface has to be with the parent becomes the interface. So now let's look at how we can troubleshoot our curriculum during these uncertain times. Troubleshooting is very important because we cannot have children sitting in front of the screens. What needs to change then? In today's times, parents need to take over the teacher's role because the schools are shut, the teachers are not going to school, the children are not going to school, they are not in their classrooms. So here, the parents have to take over the teacher's role, and tasks have to be given to children so that experiential learning takes place at home. The tasks have to be such that they are child centered. The moment the tasks are child centered, it becomes meaningful for them. When the child, and then intrinsic motivation comes. And when the child is doing it at home, there are a lot of other factors. Lot of people of different ages, like the parents, there could be grandparents, there could be siblings. So the child is learning a lot of social and emotional skills. Otherwise, in a structured school environment, the child usually does not find that much time to spend with the parents or the grandparents. So they are getting a lot of time here to do some family activities, which can help children learn social and emotional skills as well. So all we need to do is shift our pedagogy and methodology a little bit to make it more suited for our homes. So when we look at it from the issues that teachers are facing, right now, there is no school interface as we spoke, and technology. I mean, not every teacher is equipped to handle technology. Not every teacher is able to navigate through technology that well. And there are so many issues that we keep reading about when it comes to technology and how teachers are facing so many problems when they are handling it. Then the home environment is very unstructured. Therefore, the teacher's role now becomes a facilitator in which the teacher is going to be helping the parent to transact the same things what they were doing in school. But parents will need a lot of hand holding because parents lack teaching abilities. Not every parent is a teacher. Not every parent has the time to do it. Every parent is also navigating through their office work at home. So we need to understand that we have to step into a new role today. Every teacher has to step into the role of a facilitator, where you can probably have tasks given in the morning and a regular follow up as to how much the task was done. So, just a quick poll. I would like teachers to type in the chat box, do you think giving technology to children is the right way forward? Do you think technology is something that can replace a school environment? Do you think technologies can replace textbooks? Do you think technology can replace experiential learning? See what are the different ways in which children are actually sitting on technology and doing. If you look at it, technology is another way of passive teaching. When a child is sitting in front of a screen and all that we are doing is teaching them on Zoom, or the child is going on the internet and researching, for a primary child, for a primary school child, this can actually be very dangerous. So children can be exposed to a lot of cybercrime as well. Technology, if not handled properly, if a child just leaves the technology and gives the child some piece of technology, and the child is navigating on his own. You never know where the child reaches. So, are children even prepared for all this? Technology can actually also lead to a lot of physical problems besides the social and emotional problems. A child sitting in front of the screen can develop a lot of health issues like bad posture, like eyes. There are a whole bunch of these issues which will start cropping up. And when it comes to learning, when it comes to experiential learning, it leads to isolated learning. When a child is sitting in front of technology, he is learning in isolation. Whereas a home can be such a perfect place where people are there to interact with the child, where the child has the resources in which he can just dive into unstructured learning. And unstructured learning can actually make a child discover his passions. And then there can be a lot of pressure on the child as well as the parent. When the child is not sitting because their attention span is very low. So technology cannot be a solution, I feel. So do you think screen time or family time, which of the two would be a better learning opportunity according to you? Yes, I can see most of you opt for family time, and we will see how our homes can actually become perfect skill building places. Outdoor and indoor activities can be such perfect uh, ways of getting learning outcomes and skills built at home. If a child just picks up a leaf, if a child just picks up a leaf and starts observing it and starts making connections with how the various structure of the leaf, the different parts of the leaf, the child can actually be made to draw the leaf, and then you can interlink maths in it. How area and surface area can get done using that leaf. How the child can then be asked to write, say, an autobiography of a leaf. That's where English gets integrated. So there are various ways in which you can integrate learning, you can integrate subjects through outdoor and indoor activities. Your leftover food, you can ask children to make a bird feeder out of it. And then you can actually ask children to hang it outside and then observe the different kinds of birds that are visiting. And then you can actually introduce that chapter on birds. Children could be asked to close their eyes and sit out and observe and experience the different kinds of birds that are coming there, the different kinds of sounds that they can hear. All these can actually be experiential. For middle school, children can actually go to the kitchen and do so many things. Kitchens are like perfect science labs. If and they can become good family fun time too. Playing indoor games can be another way of teaching them all these skills. Like a simple game of carom board can actually teach a child about different, they can do the sorting skills. They can do sorting as far as the big and small size if they are younger children. For middle school, they can learn about friction when they are playing carom board. All the various factors that affect friction. How when we put powder, then the friction gets reduced and the striker can strike the coin. So these are the different ways in which children can learn. But of course, it becomes very difficult when teachers are not able to transact it. Parents will never get these ideas, or even if they get it, they don't know how to transact it. So, some of these ideas that you can do with children so that they build skills at home. One is your photographs. Picture albums. Our homes have so many photo albums with us. We can just sit with the child. You can actually give them a task that children can sit with photo albums with their parents, and that entire unit on family life gets done. The child can be talking to the parent and discussing what are the different occasions when these pictures were taken. Who are the different family members who are there in the picture? This can be extended by talking what are the qualities of each family member. And then they can be asked to make a family tree. So see how these things can actually be done. What you have to do as a teacher is pick them up from your school textbooks, make them into tasks for the day, and then tell parents how they can actually talk to the child effectively. Small things like you can ask them to make picture magnets. Here you can ask them, parents and children can actually sit together and make these craft ideas. There are so many things, when we make a braille, it's a simple thing. You can actually ask children to write their names in braille. They can spend hours doing it. And when they start doing it themselves and it is meaningful, tell them, okay, now write your name in braille. Okay, now write your parents name in braille. What is happening here? Such activities, if you pick up from your textbooks, the first thing that you're making the child do is, it's a craft, it's an art, and the child is sitting there hours experiencing it, and he will also be motivated to do it. The child is absorbed in it, so there is meaningful activity happening. Along with it, you can actually make the child, you're actually making the child sensitive towards others. When a child does an activity like this on braille, he is getting sensitive towards people, towards unfortunate people, towards people who are not as fortunate as we are. And that's where empathy is also getting built. So, see how these activities can actually help children build different values, different system. And this is what our textbooks are aiming at. This is what our curriculum is aiming at. And simple things like measurements. Measurements can be so easily done at home. It becomes so difficult for us to get these things in school. But at home, you can actually, ask children, okay, measure the various objects around you first with your handspan. And then you can actually ask them, okay, now see if the parent also measures it with the handspan, is the answer same? So the concept of measurement gets done. The concept of how why we need standardized units gets done. The child can be left in the kitchen and you can give them different kinds of pots and pans and different containers and a bottle of water. Tell them, okay, now measure how many, suppose it's a spoon that you give as the measurement unit. You can say, okay, now count how many spoons of water is needed to fill up each of these utensils. The child is learning not just measurements, the child is also learning data collection. This is what is data science, the basics of data science. Tell the child to then note down the different the data for each container, how many spoons were needed to fill up that container. And then you can actually blend it with English. The child can actually be asked to write about his experience. The moment the child writes about his experience of doing that activity, then not just English gets done, the child also gets connected with his own emotion. So social and emotional is also getting done while the child is transacting it. So these are all there in the textbooks. Then the other thing that you can do is, if it's like a grade 4 or 5 child, you can actually give the child a piece of clay and tell them, okay, now today we'll make a pot. Make different shapes and sizes, and then see which of them is most suitable to make a water dish for the birds. So what will happen? The design and the structure is also getting done. The child is then thinking, okay, what is the most suitable size and shape for a utensil in which a bird can drink water? So the concepts are getting laid. The child is engrossed in making it at home, and then you are extending it as a value and life skill, in which you can then tell them after they make the pot, okay, now place water in this pot and leave it outside for the birds. Every day, keep filling up this water. What is happening? That this is becoming meaningful for the child. It is becoming experiential for the child. The child understands why I mean, it's very important for children to develop this humanity, this empathy for others. This is what corona is teaching us today. All this isolation, all this lockdown is teaching us to look after our environment. And this is the environment connect that you can give to your children. So all we need to do is, these are all there in the school textbooks. All we need to do is give parents these ideas from the textbook. Tell them, okay, this is what you can do as a task today. And then you can keep extending these and saying, okay, once the child has kept the pot with water outside, you can ask the child, okay, observe the different kinds of birds that drink water from your pot. Draw their beak. The moment the child is drawing the bird and is identifying the kind of beak, you can build upon it and say, okay, now guess the kind of food that that bird would be eating. What kind of food habits would that bird be having? See how just by making that clay pot, you have actually touched upon that chapter on birds also. And this is how you can actually extend learning and make it experiential. Rather than making children sit and watch animations on the computer, rather than making children sit for Zoom classes, where again passive teaching is happening. What are we doing when we are sitting in front of the computer and teaching them? It's passive teaching. Today corona lockdown has actually given us opportunity to make experiential learning possible for our children, to help children learn all these from their parents, interact with their parents. How many children are actually sitting and interacting with their parents and grandparents these days? They are as it is sitting on the gadgets. And that is why those family times are going, and that is why values and life skills, we have to actually teach it in classrooms. We have to teach it through our textbooks. And let me tell you, when we put them in our textbooks, it just becomes like a box over there. Most of the time those values and life skills are also read like a part of the text. Here we are getting an opportunity to do that with our children, make it meaningful and contextual for them. Middle school children, when we are doing that chapter on microorganisms, you can actually tell children, even food in grade 6, you can actually tell children to do some pickling at home and then observe. So, how skills of observation are so important. Maybe you can just ask children to observe pickles at home and see why is it that this pickle is actually staying. Why hasn't it got spoiled? Whereas if you leave, an example could be like if you leave a mango outside without pickling, it will get spoiled after 2 or 3 days. Why do you think it is not happening when there is a pickle, when it is pickled? So the child is then moving from just understanding and remembering towards analyzing and evaluating. Today, children are finding this difficult. We have to make them move up the Bloom's ladder. And these are all there in the textbooks. Small little thing like indicators. When the child is doing indicators, you can actually give them different spices in the kitchen. You can give them, when they're doing acid, bases, and salts, you can actually give them different chemicals in the kitchen. Tell them, okay, now see how they are reacting. When they are reacting, that is when you can actually lay the concept. You can ask them, okay, now write why did you get the observation that you got. And that is where experiential learning will happen. And that is how the child will start moving upwards on the Bloom's taxonomy. So, like, for if you look at it, if we are changing our methodology and we're teaching like this, we are integrating all the 21st century skills as well. The 4 key skills of creating, collaborating, critical thinking, and communicating, all of them will happen. Why are we just not utilizing the power of experiential learning at home? This is a time, very good time that we've got. Imagine if you had to make a lemonade in your classroom. So much of pre-preparation you would have to do. Here it is already available at home. If you had to make children do all these things in classrooms, it would take time. It will require a lot of inputs from you as well as from the child. But today they can do it all at home. And why are we not utilizing this? Many do-it-yourself projects can also be given to children. These are all there in the school textbooks. These are all there. When you're doing that chapter on houses, you can actually ask children, look for a shoebox at home, look for wrapping material at home, and try and make a model of a house. The moment the child is sitting and making a model of a house using a shoebox, look at, this is what is actually STEAM. Think about it, how many skills will get into it, because here the child has to first visualize the kind of a house he would make out of that shoebox. You can then extend it and say, okay, which of the geographical areas do you think this house would find its place in? If it was an area where it rains a lot, how do you think you will make a change to this house that you made? So these are the ways that you can actually make children do projects. And some of the things that you can do, like the first aid kit, when you're doing that chapter on health and first aid, you can actually make children make their first aid kit. Today we are stuck with this coronavirus. We can tell them, okay, now think of innovative ways in which you can stay protected. Think of ways in which you can make a mask and prevent the virus from spreading. Think of different ways or different ideas of social distancing. So various ways of, these are all there in the textbooks. All we need to do is just bring it out for children. Things like, how detergents are all chemicals. The detergent is a chemical. The things that we use as cleaners in the kitchens, in the bathrooms, they are all chemicals. And how are those chemicals reacting with different things? You can probably give the child a bottle of any bathroom cleaner and maybe ask them, okay, there are these 5 different things that I'm giving you. See how they react on each of them, and then make a report. So see how senior school children can actually start making reports. They can actually interview people at home. They can interview, they can actually set up time to make new chemicals in the kitchen. Give them different chemicals in the kitchen. They can make hygrometers. Tell them, okay, different kinds of liquids are given to you in the kitchen. It could be oils, different oils, it could be milk, it could be water, it could be vinegar. And then you can tell them, okay, now see, mix them all up and leave them for a while. See how the difference in the density will give different layers. So these are all activities that are there in the books. All we need to do is that we need to become a little more task oriented. We need to just give these as tasks to our parents. Parents will not be able to do all this themselves. You have to pull them out from the textbooks. Instead of sitting for Zoom classes, we can just take them out from school textbooks and give them as tasks for the day. So one STEAM activity, what is STEAM? STEAM is nothing else but science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths all integrated together. So, you can actually make children do these activities at home. Today, we are all talking of soaps, right? We are all talking how important it is to wash your hands all the time with soap and water. So you can actually give them a situation, a problem. Okay, the soap has finished today. Now, think of innovative ways in which you can make soap at home. You have the entire kitchen to yourself. You have all the material lying at home. Now, pick and choose the different things that you will use to make soap at home. Now, what will happen? The child will go around and analyze each thing that is there in the kitchen and pick up things that he can use to make soap. And then he will actually make it at home. And once the child has made it at home, he's actually been doing different kind of chemical reactions. He would see how things can be reused because there would be scraps lying. The child could probably use some tulsi leaves or neem leaves. You could probably find the child using maybe some dalia in the kitchen and using scraps of soap, grating it and mixing it together and making another soap. So, what the child is, how you are stimulating the child is very, very important. And these things can actually be achieved so easily in at homes. So, why are we losing all these opportunities? And they're all there in our school textbooks. Pick and choose. So if we just look back at all that we were talking, art and craft can be brilliant activities to actually integrate all 21st century skills. We can actually integrate, help children move upwards in on Bloom's taxonomy. You can also help children to integrate different subjects together. Discussions. You can hold discussions with children. Use your Zoom time or WhatsApp group calls for discussions. And they can be meaningful discussions where, in case a child, suppose it is about the soap activity. So, where the child can actually discuss and brainstorm with, with you as the facilitator, with other children in the group, and let them then come up with a good idea of making soap at home. You can actually see how values and life skills are getting integrated subconsciously. They are getting integrated when we are making them do these experiential learning activities. Research skills. In most of the textbooks, we have research projects. So middle school children can actually be given those projects to do. They can actually research on each activity. Suppose it is on microorganisms. Today we are fighting with the virus. And when we are talking of diseases, communicable, non-communicable diseases, when we are talking of microorganisms, you can actually ask children to research on virus and bacteria and maybe make a report on the difference between viruses and bacteria. Why is it that antibiotics do not work on viruses? So, when children are also doing these things while, when all this is happening, research skills are also getting done. And then they can prepare case studies. So, case studies also get done. And then you can have discussions in your groups. Problem solving also gets integrated. See how we created a situation where there was a problem in terms of soap. Then we can also think of the food. When we made the bird feeder, we can say, okay, we have leftover food. Now, how would you make use of it in a very innovative manner? So they can actually then come up with problem solving as well. Experiential learning also gets done. And when children are doing all this, parents will not need too much overseeing, because a child is given a task. When the child is given a task, there is an aim. When there is an aim, the child knows that I have to do this. And then if you say that I'm going to have a discussion on this in our next class, or tomorrow we will hold a discussion on this, then the child knows that yes, I am supposed to prepare for that discussion. So the child, because it is fun, because it is something new that the child is creating, and it is not looking at the blackboard or the Zoom screen or the computer screen, the child will actually be involved in it. So the motivation is also going to be very high as far as learning those skills go. So if we look at it, these are the various ways in which we can transact learning and ensure skill building at home. And let's go back to our screen. If we look at it, this is what our policymakers are advocating as well. Experiential learning. We saw, if we change the way we are approaching our chapters, and believe me, they are all there in the textbooks. It just depends on the material that you use and how you use it. how you transact it. You just have to use parents as the facilitator in between. They are your interface. You have to just interface, make parents an interface between you and the child, wherein the parent has no other role except to pass on the task sheet to the child. And for older children, you even don't need that. So learning outcomes mandate will also get done, because all the learning outcomes are based on skills. Today, if you look at all the EVS and science learning outcomes, they're all skill based. Art integration is automatically getting done. See, if you ask children to draw models, like when we said making the house, you can ask children to first draw the model of the house that they are making and then discuss it with you over on the WhatsApp discussion group. You can actually have discussions over the drawing, then come up with a prototype, like what would be the ideal design to make, and then children can actually make it at home. So art integration automatically gets done, skill building automatically gets done. See how different skills were getting integrated. And teaching should be bilingual. See how, when the child is at home, automatically the child will be speaking to at least one or two people at home in their mother tongue. And therefore, when you are talking to the child in English and the mother tongue is happening at home, bilingual, rich bilingual vocabulary will get done. Language development automatically happens when you ask children to write. When they are writing and expressing, language development automatically gets done. See how we broke boundaries between subjects when the child was measuring, right? When the child is using measurements and units, maths is getting integrated. When the child is collecting data, maths is getting integrated. When the child is talking to the parent or is creating case studies, English is getting integrated. So all these are getting integrated without any boundaries. So seamless learning is happening. Indian flavor automatically comes when he's in that home, or whatever country you might be. Your local flavor actually comes when you are doing things at home. And holistic learning automatically gets done, because here the child is also connected within. The child is interacting with people around him. The child is interacting with his peer group through those WhatsApp calls, through your groups. So holistic learning is automatically getting done. Values and life skills are getting done. All these are there in these school textbooks that we have. So it depends on how you pick them up and give them to the parent or give them to the child. So the teacher's role now shifts from, in such a methodology, the teacher's role shifts from just being a sage on the stage kind of an approach to a guide on the side approach. So these are some of the ways in which you can easily have skills getting built in children at home. All these science and EVS skills can actually get uh, really strengthened and built at home, which sometimes we find them difficult to transact in our classrooms, because there are so many limitations there. The limitations of time periods, like periods are short. Sometimes there are limitations of material. Sometimes there are the boundaries of the four walls of the classroom. So there are so many, and infrastructural limitations could be there. But at home, these limitations are not there. So why are we not exploiting our homes as powerful learning centers? So these are some of the ideas which I thought that teachers could use while we are all in this corona lockdown, and help children build skills at home. I hope you find some of these ideas useful and help children experience their learning so that they enjoy it and learning becomes a joyous journey. Each child is, I've always believed, that every child is born with that natural intelligence. And the role of education should be to help the child preserve that magic and wonder that each of them is born with, and help the child become a lifelong learner, so that they are, they are growing within. And with active teaching, with experiential learning, all this is possible. And if each one of us, if each teacher pledges to give at least one scientist to our country, I think we would do a great job as teachers. If even one thinker or one scientist, every teacher pledges that, okay, in my entire teaching career, I'm going to give at least one scientist to the country, I think we would all do a great service to our nation. Thank you so much, everyone. And I leave the floor now for question and answers. Any questions or queries that teachers have? Ashmita, any? So do we have any questions here?
Whether you can put some innovative ideas for senior class students.
Do we have any questions here, Ashmita?
Yeah, as one of our teachers have asked, can you put some innovative ideas for senior class students?
Yes. Senior school children, there can be many ways. It depends on which class you're talking about. For senior school, there can be a lot of model making. You know, you can actually ask children to, suppose, I'll give you one example of the coronavirus situation at the moment. You can actually ask children to collect data. You can ask children to study the various, how every country is, how the numbers are increasing in every country, what is the pattern that is showing. And then you can ask them, okay, now predict how the pattern would be in India, and how do you think we can prevent it. What are the ways they can actually do some modeling on any country that has found a better way of handling it. They can also be asked to do a comparative study between herd immunity and lockdown. So a comparative study can be done, and they can come up with their own case study of what could actually be the right way forward. They can actually be asked to come up with how social distancing can actually help to flatten the curve, or how lockdown can be used to flatten the curve. What does the curve actually mean? All these, it depends on how we approach them. Now the locusts are coming. So how do you think these locust swarms can impact crops at the moment? How do you think this can be prevented? Do you think we could have actually visualized this earlier and created some innovative way of protecting our crops from it? So that could have actually that can actually help children come up with an innovative idea as well. And again, it becomes real time. So there is a chapter, there is a whole topic on agriculture. We can actually integrate these kind of things, use news as a means of getting ideas for children for projects at the moment, because currently we have so many issues. How do you think this this virus could spread through bats? Do you think it could have been prevented if if China had done something in the beginning? How do you think China's response could have prevented it? Or is it that it could not have been prevented, come what may? So these are how you can make children be more involved and actually get their innovative thinking on. I hope I've addressed that. Any other question?
Yes, so we have another teacher who has asked that a lot, some of them also cater to students coming from rural backgrounds or children who are first generation generation learners, how can they address such students? What is the best way to address or cater to such students?
See, for these children, the best thing is they may not have internet connections. They may not have online support like what urban children have. So, but everyone has a phone these days. So, what teachers can do is that they can create voice messages and send them through WhatsApp or send them through as voice messages. So, for rural children, this can be a very good way. Kitchen ideas can be beautifully implemented with rural children. The outdoor ideas, the birds, the leaves, the agricultural chapters, all these ideas can be easily incorporated for rural children. But what teachers can do is that they can actually create voice messages to give them tasks, because all of them have phones these days. They may not have internet connections, they may not have laptops, they may not have desktops, but they definitely have phones these days. They definitely have smartphones, if not anything else. But the key here is that you have to give clear cut tasks to those children, because parents will not be able to execute them or help them at all. So, tasks have to be very well explicitly given to those children through voice messages. Voice messages can be perfect. Any other question?
Okay. Yeah, I'll put up the next question. So, we have Amandeep Singh who has asked, how do you could you share some ideas about online tests now that everybody is like teachers are teaching online? If they have to conduct some assessment, how is the best possible way to go about it? Any ideas or suggestions?
I think Google Docs would be best. Create your test on Google Docs and send it to them. Google Docs allows you lots and lots, Google Forms allows you lots and lots of possibilities. Multiple choice questions are there, fill in the blanks are there, question answers can be put. So I think Google Forms can be very good way of sending them evaluations, and even for children to kind of interact with you as far as sending answers go or discussion questions. Google Forms can be a very good way. Any other question? I hope I have
Yeah.
answered your.
Yeah. So we have another teacher, Navjot. She's asking, how can we differentiate while teaching online? Because in class we follow IEP, but online, how can we implement that successfully?
Implement what successfully? I missed out that.
Uh, so
What do you want to
the teacher is
implement?
asking, how can we differentiate? How can we differentiate while teaching online? Because when we are in class, we follow IEP,
Hmm.
but how can that be implemented while teaching online?
See, the thing is that when you're teaching them online, there are many challenges in any case that will come. That is exactly why I'm saying give them experiential learning over here, and let them make videos when they are doing stuff. You will integrate technology also, and then the assessment part can easily be done. If children are making their own videos while doing their activities and posting, they can click pictures while they are doing their activities and posting. A lot of assessment can be done. You'll get a clear idea. Any other
Okay,
question?
I think this could be the last question for the day, and it's a very interesting question, I feel. So, Tanushri is asking, how can we make classes interesting when students come back to school after lockdown?
Okay, I think you will have to first really motivate them to sit in class, because it's perhaps you could start with a social activity, because that is something that they would be missing. They are missing their friends, they are missing their socializing. You could probably begin with a very interesting and interactive group activity. Include Start off with small groups, divide the entire class into groups of 5, and give them tasks so that suddenly they're not overwhelmed by too much socializing as well. Because they will not be able to, they've been disconnected, and getting their rhythm back is not going to be easy. So maybe you can begin with smaller groups, like divide the entire class into groups of 5, give each group one task, so they begin with collaborating and communicating with each other, understanding each other, and then maybe have like a whole class activity, because a lot of social distancing norms would not be lifted. So you will probably need to keep all these things in mind. So socializing, I personally feel that the first thing that the teachers could help children is when they socialize. And by socializing, it doesn't mean hugging each other or playing like physically clapping and things with each other. You just have to kind of make them involved with each other in a task, so that they're talking to each other face to face. That human interaction is what children are missing out on these days. So that can help, sort of bring them back into system without making them totally overwhelmed with the entire group. So any other question?
I think we are almost running out of time, but we've tried to capture most of the questions that are coming. A lot of questions are being repeated, similar questions being asked by different teachers. But then we will have to come to a close today. But Vaishali, it has been a wonderful session, very interactive. I have been following the chat box. I'm sure you are too. And we're getting a lot of response from teachers who are saying that these are very innovative ideas, and some of them have also implemented them, and some will again go back to their online classes tomorrow, and maybe introduce them to their students. But then it's been a
Yeah.
wonderful session. Thank you so much for taking out your time for
Thank
us and for our teachers.
thank you so much.
Teachers, thank you too for attending our webinar and being such a wonderful audience.
Thank
We
you.
know there are a lot of questions that you have. We have Vaishali ma'am's contact on the screen. You can just reach out to her directly if you want to with your questions. I'm sure she'll be happy to respond. And
Yes, absolutely.
thank you.
Anytime. And thank you so much, teachers, for being there. And for more ideas, you can just follow my Facebook page. And I hope together we can all make a difference to the way we are teaching our children. And all these ideas are there in the textbooks. I haven't really taken out anything beyond the textbooks that I've written. So it's just about how we transact it. It's just about how we use them. We have all the resources. All teachers, I'm sure, have all the resources. Just make learning more joyous for children. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening and goodbye.
Goodbye.